Hi friends, and welcome to the breakdown of my live setup. What you're seeing here is the setup I've used to play all of my live shows in the last 1.5 years. Most recently, my set Resonance is Memory that you also find up here on YouTube. A lot of people have asked to do a little breakdown of the set, which is what I want to do in today's video, so hope you find that interesting. If you do, a sub to the channel is always much appreciated. The setup consists of my Moog Sub 25, which is my analog synth I use to tweak all the parameters, I'll show you in a minute, and then the Ableton Push 3. I use this one here to control Ableton Live, which is running on my MacBook. So these are the only three components that I have: the Moog, the Push, and the laptop running Ableton Live. If you like my work here and want to help me to keep going with my educational content, you can support me on Patreon or consider buying one of my sound packs, like my very new one, Melodic Movement, on my web shop. Both links to my website and to my Patreon are down in the video description. And now let's get into the setup. Let's start actually here on the left side with the Moog Subsequent 25. The Sub 25 is a mono or duophonic synth, which means it has two oscillators and both oscillators can play a different voice, which you can use in very interesting ways for sound design. I use it in to be sequenced here from the Push. So if I just start a MIDI sequence like this one here, I now have different options to play the synth live. So I can tweak the filter, which is something I really love to do. I can use the resonance. I change a lot of times the envelopes. Or I add some modulation to make the sound a little bit more snappy. Nice. Or I bring in a second oscillator, overdrive the first one, add glide, I think you can already see how crazy you can shape the sound, and that is a ton of fun to do live. I've played, as I said, for many years now with this synth, so I kind of like do it intuitively. I could also do, for example, here, change the octave. Yeah. In the past, I was a little bit scared of all the different parameters that this thing has, but if you get into it and learn it, it's a ton of fun to tweak live, and it will generate a lot of interesting results for you. Another way how I like to do it is actually it has a keyboard, so I can play it live. You can see here on the side there are presets. Now I could program Ableton to send preset changes to the Moog, which is something I don't want to do. I want to change them by hand, which gives me more control, because sometimes in a song I like to change presets just as I feel it. And I have saved multiple presets up here, like more sustained notes, then kind of like your typical Stefan Butzin-like bass leads, but also here some, this actually is a duophonic sound, so if I play a C here and let's say an F here, they're playing on top of each other. Can also be used to create some really nice results. I actually used that technique here in the beginning of my live set Resonance is Memory. So when the intro was playing, I was basically just playing on top here on the keyboard some notes, which adds some variation, which I really like to do. Yeah, all of these sounds also have this modulation here that I can bring up. I programmed it to do different things on different sounds. So here it's controlling the LFO is controlling the filter amount. So the filter cutoff is being moved, and also a little bit the pitch amount. So you get this wobble effect. And then, yeah, if I don't want the sound, I can just bring it back down, which is extremely handy. And yeah, this way I can kind of like shape the sounds in multiple ways and create some interesting results. It really invites for exploration because I'm a person, I like to have safe states, and if I kind of like really screw up one of my presets, I always just have to kind of like double tap. So I load a new preset and then I go back to the preset I've loaded, and now it's back to the default state, which is extremely handy. So this way you don't kind of like lose completely overview, and you always know kind of like, no matter how crazy you tweak your preset, you can always go back to the normal state. Before we get into the Push 3, a couple of notes on connections. Right now the setup is not connected as I would have connected it if I would play a live show. Right now everything is connected here to my studio interface, to my studio mixer, so that I can record this video here for you. But if I would be in a live scenario, the great thing about the setup is that I don't need many cables. The Push 3 has an integrated audio interface that I like to use, and it also has here a USB connection. So what I can do, as the Sub 25 supports USB as well, I can use a USB cable for a MIDI connection, and then I just need to use one audio cable from the Sub 25's output into the input number 1 of the Push's audio interface. And we're done. That's all the connections I need. And then, of course, both of the outputs of the Push 3 I can then send off to the FOH or to the mixing desk, the iBox, whatever it is that I want to connect myself to. Okay, now let's get to the Push 3, which is kind of like the main brain of the setup. Here, multiple things are happening at the same time. So at first, it's my clip launcher. I've structured my tracks, all of them, to fall into different instrument groups. So 8 in total. It's kick, bass, snares, hi-hats, percussions. This is kind of like my Moog, and in some older songs there's also some audio recordings of my Digitone triggered. Then synths, meaning software synthesizers, and then samples, meaning melodic samples. And this way I know exactly which ones to trigger. Of course, I can trigger complete scenes like this, and now this scene here is playing, but actually, let me turn that a little bit down so that I can hear my voice a little bit better. Here we go. Actually, I can also use it for mutes. So if I tap in an empty row here, I can, for example, mute the kick drum. I can mute the bass, I can mute my melodic parts so that just the percussions are playing. I can bring back in the kick or bring back in just a Moog. And trigger the whole scene again. Very straightforward, but the fun really starts, and this is something I absolutely love to do live on stage, is when I not only bring in clips from other scenes from the same song, like this, but also bring in scenes from other songs. So for example, this is my track Ease right now playing. Let's go down here to my track Ghost. Here it is. Now I'm playing the Moog and the Digitone patterns from Ghost on top of Ease. I can now also change the percussion. Now we have snares, hi-hats, percussions, and the Moog and Digitone sounds here from the track Ghost. and the rest is still coming from my other track. Let's bring, this is my track Sandworm. Let's bring in a melodic sample here. It kind of works. Sometimes it's a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes you get some patterns that work well together. Sometimes the patterns are not working super well together. This is something, when I practice with my setup, I find out, okay, this song works well with this song. Obviously, I know all the keys of my song. So for example, I knew all the 3 tracks I've been playing now are all in C minor. So no matter which notes I'm playing, it's always in key. So it doesn't sound super off. But yeah, sometimes the patterns work better together. But this is something I like to surprise myself on stage doing that, so that sometimes some elements are coming up that are completely surprising for me and that I can then tweak further and lean more into as part of the performance. So that is one of the key elements that I love to do. So yeah, if I'm here in my track Sandworm, now bring in here my Moog. Which kind of like works. So the Moog is now from my track Ghost. Let's actually take the kick out here. Now we have kick, hi-hats, percussion and Moog sound from my track Ghost. And bass, snare, and melodic sample from Sandworm. And as you can hear, it works quite well. So yeah, these are kind of like the shenanigans you can then do on stage, which is really fun. Now, there is a third performance element that I like to bring in here on the Push, which is, I call it the Master Performance Rack, which is a rack that I have created here. You can see it actually here on the macros. It lives on 2 different pages. So this is page number 1, this is page number 2. And with that, I can control various send effects that are applied to the mix that I'm playing. I've routed it in ways that some of the effects are only affecting drum sounds, some of the effects are only affecting melodic sounds. So for example, if I, let's stick with Ghost. So we have this one playing now. The first one is a melodic reverb. You can hear there's a big reverb that I can send all of my melodic sounds into. The second one I have is a drum delay. Extremely nice for transitions, especially when you stop the sounds. We have these nice delay tails going on, which is super nice to do. The next one is a shimmer for the drums. Which just basically adds some white noise, but depending on kind of like which drum sounds you're feeding into the effect. Then we have a melodic delay, which I love to use on the Moog. Create some really nice effects. The next one is a melodic shimmer. Which works extremely nicely for transitions. Then the next one we have is a DJ filter. The more I turn it up, lower frequencies are filtered out, and at the same time there's a ping pong delay coming in, as you can hear. And I can bring it back down, nice. And these two are a little bit special. So when I told you that there's actually 8 groups going on, I actually have a hidden 9th group, which is called sound effects. And these ones here are kind of like different sound effects that I trigger here on the main channel. And you can actually see when I bring up these values here, the tracks get enabled, and if I bring them all the way down to 0, the tracks get disabled. Now you need to kind of like imagine that in the background, all of these clips are 8-bar loops that are constantly playing transitions, which meaning swooshes or kind of like, actually let me play something for you, what we have here. So if I just play this now for you, you can hear after 8 bars, takes a little bit of time, the claps are coming in, and there's a swoosh happening as well. This is really handy to have because I know that after every 8 bars I can make a transition no matter in which pattern or scene, as it's called in live, I am. So let's just go back to our normal view. And I know, for example, I'm playing this pattern here. Now I want to make a transition, so I bring this one up. I could now mute all my low frequencies, maybe also bring up the filter. You hear it coming in. And then I can drop back into the same pattern. I bring this down to the value 0, and now this looping sound effects are not playing anymore. This is extremely handy because I can make transitions in every pattern, even within the same pattern, because if I stay on that pattern and I start here to tweak the Moog in various ways, then I think I kind of like what I have created here. Then I could say, okay, I want to stay in that pattern, so I just use the performance effects. And we are still in the same pattern, but could perform a transition, which can be extremely handy when playing live. Because I know that every of these patterns I have kind of like pre-programmed some transitions. These are really just 8-bar loops. I throw them sometimes in a little bit loosely there so that I just know every kind of like scene here has a transition so that I can perform one whenever I need it. And then, in the end, I just like to bring basically all of that together. So I can kind of like stay on that pattern here. Or actually, let's go to another track. Let's go to my track Angst, which is this one here. I've left in here the Moog pattern from my track Ghost because they actually go really nicely together. So that I can just tweak here some of the parameters. And this is then kind of like how you bring all the elements together. One thing I forgot to mention is I have a second page on my performance rack. This is still a little bit work in progress, but I really like to use that. That is kind of like my my looper. I built a looper device so that every audio piece that I'm playing here can actually be looped. So let's say we have this one here, and I can then just enable this looper here. And now we have a 1-bar sequence looped. Nothing is playing here anymore, no clips are playing. And now I can change the looper grip. And can do some crazy stuff with that. I also have a filter here, with which I can kind of like filter the looper. So I could, for example, take out the low end, do something like this, and then bring in the low end from another track, for example, from Ghost. very flexible. It also has a delay. That's actually already quite nice. A reverb as well. It creates the whole thing into like a huge pad, so to say. It's really nice if you want to get rid of the looper and get back kind of like to your original clips playing. I like to drone it in reverb and then just slowly fade it out using this dry wet here, because the dry wet is also an integrated volume knob, which is pretty handy. So yeah, you can see I kind of like, here we go, and now it's gone. Yeah, that's the looper. And the cool thing is now everything here is reset. I'm like, oh fuck, if I now loop a section, it will sound like this. Probably not what I want. So for all of my racks, I have created here, how I call it, a reset button. So if I move this big knob here and go to reset rack, I can just hit that and now my rack is completely resetted. This, by the way, also works if I completely mess up my effects here. Something like this. If I now hit reset rack, everything is back to normal. And due to the fact that these are send effects, they will still keep their tails, which is really nice. So it kind of like slowly and smoothly blends over into kind of like the resetted rack, so to say. Outside of the looper here, there's a couple of more things I have. So the last two controls is a fade to gray, which I like to use at the end of my set. It just, yeah, it's a classic fade to gray effect. It's a really nice way to end your set. It kind of like keeps on this long filtered delay tail for a very long time. So kind of like you can bring your energy to the very maximum and then just go to a fade to gray, stop all the clips, and then just wait until this longer feedback time is over, which is actually really handy. If you then turn it back to the left, you have silence again. And then the last one actually is my Moog Shimmer. If you're familiar with my track Dune, then this is the Dune preset. Sounds very, yeah, not super fancy, but if I drain it in the Moog Shimmer, we get the Moog effect. That's also one of the main reasons why I don't use the Ableton Push 3 standalone yet. So yeah, as I said in the beginning, the setup still is connected to my MacBook, which I don't have to look at. So everything I need performance-wise is happening on these two devices. The MacBook is really running in the background. At some gigs, I also hide it under my table because I only need it for processing power. And one of the main reasons is for this Moog Shimmer effect. This is coming from Valhalla Supermassive, which is a VST plugin. And as of now, the Push 3 doesn't support VST plugins. Sorry, the Push 3 standalone doesn't support VST plugins. So yeah, if I want to keep this effect, I have to carry my MacBook with me. But yeah, I'm working on ideas for the future to bring the whole setup just to the Push 3 standalone and use it from there. And yeah, that's mainly it. That's the whole thing. Kind of like you can go really crazy with that, create some from the source material that you have, create some really nice stuff. Either by switching here the presets, tweaking parameters. something like that. I could keep playing with that, although it's just a ton of fun, and yeah, I'm continuously working on improving it, because I always see there are some effects in these 16 effect slots that I don't use that often. For example, here the melodic reverb, so I'm thinking of ways of exchanging it for some other stuff. I'm also thinking of getting some additional controllers so that I don't have to control all of my effects here via the push, and I can free up the push actually to maybe also play something on the pads and have something here, an external MIDI controller, to also have some faders to control volume fades, but also to have some more encoders to map to certain effects in the set. There's a ton of options which I love, and yeah, I'm currently keeping exploring these options and how I want to improve it for the future. Yeah, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, as I said in the beginning, subscribing to the channel, always nice, always helps. That's great. And yeah, if you want to support my work, my web shop is up, website and links are down in the video description. Patreon links are also down in the video description, where I have Ableton templates that are very close to this performance template. And some ambient templates as well, and a lot of other stuff. So if you want to explore that, be my guest, and I thank you very, very much. I hope you have a brilliant day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see you again for a new one. So stay creative, and bye-bye.